Good evening, and a warm welcome to Cross Currents, your weekly forum for in-depth discussion on pivotal issues. Tonight, we delve into a question that sits at the heart of democratic practice. Do term limits improve democratic governance? It's a debate with passionate advocates on both sides, touching upon ideas of representation, efficiency, and the very nature of political power. To explore this complex topic, we are joined by two distinguished guests. Arguing in favor of term limits is Dr. Eleanor Vance, a respected political scientist and author, and presenting the arguments against is Mr. Samuel Chen, an experienced policy advisor and commentator. We'll begin with opening statements from each of our guests, followed by rounds of rebuttal and discussion, and finally, closing remarks. The implications of this debate are far-reaching for the health and vitality of modern democracies, so let's begin.
Thank you, Alex. The case for term limits is, I believe, a compelling one for anyone who values a truly responsive and dynamic democracy. Primarily, term limits are a crucial tool in combating political entrenchment and the corruption that often accompanies it. When politicians remain in office for decades, they can become insulated, overly comfortable, and potentially more susceptible to the influence of special interests rather than the needs of their constituents. We've seen numerous examples where long-serving officials prioritize maintaining their grip on power over genuine public service, leading to stagnation or, worse, decisions that benefit a select few. Term limits act as a circuit breaker, disrupting these patterns. Secondly, term limits are essential for encouraging fresh perspectives and fostering innovation within our governing bodies. New leaders invariably bring new ideas, different life experiences, and a renewed energy to tackle persistent problems with novel approaches, preventing a political landscape from becoming stale or resistant to change. By ensuring a regular turnover of officials, term limits create vital opportunities for a broader and more diverse range of citizens to participate directly in governance, enriching our democracy. Finally, term limits can significantly increase accountability and responsiveness from our elected officials. Knowing their tenure is finite, politicians are arguably more motivated to achieve tangible results and create a positive legacy. They may spend less time on perpetual re-election campaigns and more on governing, often acting with greater independence as they are less beholden to party machinery or large donors for future campaigns. In conclusion, term limits represent a vital structural reform for a healthier, more representative democracy.
Thank you, Alex and Dr. Vance, for your opening remarks. While I share the desire for a robust and ethical democracy, I believe term limits are a misguided approach with significant downsides. My primary concern is the inevitable loss of valuable experience and expertise that term limits impose. Effective governance is not a simple task. It requires a deep understanding of complex policy issues and established working relationships. Forcing out skilled, experienced legislators simply because they have reached an arbitrary time limit is akin to a, quote, knowledge drain from our institutions. New legislators, however enthusiastic, face a steep learning curve, which can lead to inefficiencies, policy missteps, and a reduced capacity for government to tackle challenging long-term problems effectively. Secondly, and perhaps most fundamentally, term limits represent a significant infringement on voter choice. In a democratic society, voters should have the sovereign right to elect whomever they deem most qualified. If a community believes their representative is doing an excellent job, why should an arbitrary rule prevent them from re-electing that individual? Term limits can remove popular leaders against the electorate's will, an anti-democratic restriction. Lastly, there's a real danger that term limits can inadvertently shift power towards unelected individuals and groups. With a constant churn of relatively inexperienced legislators, reliance on long-serving lobbyists or bureaucratic staff increases. These groups possess the long-term institutional knowledge that new lawmakers lack. This dynamic can paradoxically decrease the power of our elected representatives and amplify the influence of special interests. Therefore, while the goals are understandable, term limits are a simplistic solution to complex problems, potentially creating more harm than good for democratic governance.
Thank you both for those comprehensive opening statements. Dr. Vance, Mr. Chen raises a pertinent concern about the loss of experienced legislators. How do you propose we maintain institutional knowledge and ensure governmental effectiveness if seasoned politicians who have accumulated that knowledge are systematically forced out by term limits?
It's a fair question, Alex. While experience has value, we must also acknowledge that experience isn't always a net positive. It can sometimes mean resistance to new ideas or entrenchment in outdated methods. To address knowledge transfer, we can implement robust orientation and training programs for new officials and foster better systems for institutional memory within legislative bodies. The fresh perspectives brought by new representatives often outweigh the benefits of prolonged, sometimes stagnant experience. And let's not forget, long tenure often correlates with deeply entrenched relationships with lobbyists and special interests. Term limits effectively disrupt these relationships, which is a significant benefit for transparent governance.
Mr. Chen, Dr. Vance argues compellingly that term limits are a key mechanism for preventing corruption and ushering in new ideas. If you believe term limits are not the answer, what alternative mechanisms do you see as more effective in achieving these important goals for a healthy democracy?
Thank you, Alex. I believe we have more targeted and less disruptive tools. Robust electoral processes are fundamental. Voters are often the best judge of an official's integrity and can remove corrupt politicians. Strengthening campaign finance regulations to increase transparency and reduce the influence of money in politics would be far more impactful than arbitrary term limits. Furthermore, rigorous ethics oversight, independent investigatory bodies, and a vigilant free press are crucial. New ideas can be fostered by encouraging open primaries, supporting citizen assemblies, and actively recruiting diverse candidates without resorting to the blunt instrument of term limits.
Moving on to our next point of discussion. Mr. Chen, proponents of term limits often highlight the, quote, citizen legislator ideal. The idea is that term limits encourage individuals to serve for a period and then return to their communities, preventing the formation of a permanent, detached political class. What is your response to this particular ideal?
The, quote, citizen legislator ideal has an appealing quality, Alex. However, the practical realities of modern governance demand a professionalism that this model might undermine, as governing is incredibly complex. It requires significant time to master intricate economic, social, and international issues. Constant turnover could lead to short-term thinking, with officials focusing on quick achievements rather than essential long-term strategic planning. The permanent political class concern is better addressed by ensuring fair, competitive, and accessible electoral systems holding all politicians accountable.
Dr. Vance, a counter-argument often raised is that term limits might inadvertently empower lobbyists and unelected staff. The reasoning is that these groups become consistent holders of institutional knowledge, while legislators frequently change due to term limits. How do you counter this concern?
That is a recognized potential risk, Alex, but a manageable one. While lobbyists may possess ongoing knowledge, a regular influx of new legislators also means an opportunity to break pre-existing lobbyist-politician relationships. New members may be less beholden to established influence networks, fostering a cleaner political environment. Crucially, increased transparency in lobbying and stronger ethics rules are paramount, regardless of term limits. These measures can create a more level playing field. The benefit of disrupting entrenched power and fostering new representation, in my view, significantly outweighs this manageable risk, especially if we remain vigilant.
In closing, Alex, while the aspirations of term limit proponents, reducing corruption, fostering dynamism, are objectives we all share, term limits themselves are a flawed instrument. They risk the loss of invaluable experience and deep policy expertise, crucial for effective governance in our complex world. Furthermore, they fundamentally restrict the democratic right of voters to choose their representatives freely, potentially removing effective leaders against the public will. There's also the unintended consequence of potentially increasing the influence of unelected lobbyists and staff, as they become the repositories of institutional memory. Instead, we should focus on strengthening democratic institutions through enhanced electoral integrity, campaign finance reform, and robust ethics oversight, trusting voters with genuine accountability.
Thank you, Alex. To summarize, term limits offer a powerful mechanism for democratic renewal and accountability. They are essential in combating political entrenchment, which too often breeds complacency and opens the door to corruption. By ensuring regular turnover, term limits create space for fresh perspectives, innovative ideas, and a government more reflective of its diverse society. This fosters greater responsiveness and a focus on public service rather than political self-preservation. While no solution is perfect, the proactive benefits of term limits in ensuring our government remains vibrant and representative far outweigh potential drawbacks. They are a vital safeguard for a healthy democracy.
Dr. Vance, Mr. Chen, thank you both for an exceptionally insightful and vigorously argued debate this evening. You've clearly articulated the core tension: the desire for fresh governance versus the value of experience and voter freedom. It's clear there are strong arguments on both sides, with significant implications for how our democracies function. We hope this discussion has provided our audience with ample food for thought and encouraged you to form your own informed opinions. Thank you for joining us on Cross Currents. Good evening.